Good morning, students. Today's chapter is Memories of Childhood by Jitkalasa and Bama. This unit presents autobiographical accounts of the lives of two women writers. Both of them belong to marginalized communities. Both the women look back on their childhood. The first account is by an American Indian woman born in the late 19th century. The second is by a contemporary Tamil Dalit writer. In The Cutting of My Long Hair, Jitkalasa describes how mercilessly her long and beautiful hair was forcefully cut. She was dragged out. She cried and resisted by kicking and scratching wildly. She was tied fast in a chair but did not submit. No one came for help, and not a soul consoled her. In the next unit, we too are human beings. Bama describes how Indian society is ridden with the evil of untouchability. Bama herself experienced it. She is upset by the inhuman attitude and treatment of the people belonging to the higher castes towards the people of the lower castes. Here, in the first unit, The Cutting of My Long Hair by Jit Kalasa, the first day in the land of apples. The first day in the land of apples was a bitter cold one. The ground was covered with snow. The trees were bare. The sound of the bell and the clatter of the shoes were annoying to sensitive ears. People murmured in an unknown tongue. The narrator's soul had lost her peace and freedom, but all was useless. A pale faced woman came up after them. A girl were marching into the dining room. These were Indian girls in stiff shoes and closely clinging dresses. The boys entered through the opposite door. She was feeling very uncomfortable. A small bell rang. She pulled her chair and sat on it, but she noticed that all others were standing. She felt confused. The second bell was sounded. All were seated at last. She caught the eyes of a pale faced woman upon her. She was keenly watched by the strange woman. The third bell was sounded. Everyone picked up their knife and fork and began eating. The next part is her friend gives her a terrible warning. Late in the morning, the narrator's friend, Judwin, gave her a terrible warning. She had overheard the pale faced woman talk. They were talking about cutting her long, heavy hair. Among her people, short hair was worn by mourners. Shingled hair was worn by cowards. Judwin decided to submit, but the narrator rebelled. She decided not to submit but to struggle. That means she was not ready to cut their hair because in their community, short hairs mean different things. So she was ready to rebel. Then her long hair singled. She disappeared. She came in a large room with three white beds in it. She crawled under the bed and hid herself. She heard the footsteps nearby. The steps were quickened. The voice grew louder. They looked under the bed. She was dragged out. She was carried down the stairs and tied fast to a chair. She faced extreme indignities. Her long hair was shiggled like that of a coward. No one came to comfort her. Now she was only one of the many little animals driven by a herder. So this is the story, the first story, where ultimately she could not help herself in cutting her hairs, and no one was there to console her, to console her soul. This is her memory of childhood. The next is about Bama. The first part it describes when he walks home from school. The narrator was in the third class. She had not yet heard people speak openly of untouchability, but she had already seen, felt, experienced, and been humiliated by what it was. The distance from her school to home could be covered in 10 minutes, but she took from half an hour to an hour to reach there. She watched all the fun and games that were going on. She saw performing monkeys. She saw the snake charmer displaying his snakes. The other attractions were the Mariata temple, the Pongal celebrations, the statue of Gandhiji, and the sweet and snack stalls. She could go on and on. Everything stopped her and attracted her attention. Means on the way to home from school, she used to take almost half to 1 hour by watching all these things, whereas it takes only 10 minutes to reach her home. And these are she used to be entertained by all these activities of others. Political parties would arrive. They cried through their mics. Then there might be a still street play or a puppet show or a short performance. Some of the other entertainment was always going on. There were the coffee clubs in the bazaar. She would see people chopping onions or almonds blown down by the wind. All these sights stopped her from going home. Then she would see people selling vegetables, fruits, and sweets. Food packet held not by hands but by its string. This is the point. Why? Why food packets held not by hands but by its strings? There is a story. One day, the narrator saw that a threshing floor had been set up near her street. The landlord sat there watching the proceedings. Then, an elder of their street came along from the bazaar. He was carrying a small packet. It contained something like varai or green banana bhaji. He came along holding out the packet by its string without touching it. The elder went straight to the landlord. He bowed low and extended the packet towards him. The landlord opened it and began to eat. She went home and told the story in all its comic detail. She fell about with laughter, but Anna means her elder brother, was not amused. He told her that the man was not being funny. He was from a low caste. He could not touch the food packet. So here it shows the untouchability. How upper class people dominated the lower caste people. So the incident makes her angry. When she heard it, she felt terribly sad. It was disgusting. She felt so much provoked and angry that she wanted to touch those varais herself straight away. Then she wondered why poor people showed respect and bowed before such cruel persons. In that tender age, she could raise this voice. So this is a very sensitive thing to be understood. The rich forget that others are also human beings. Then education gives dignity and respect to her. Anna told the narrator that they were born in a community of low caste people. They were never given any honor or dignity or respect. If they study and make progress, they can throw away these indignities. If they are learned, the people will come to them of their own accord. The words Anna spoke to her that day made a very deep impression on her. These words that if she studies well, if they study well, then they can make progress and they can diminish these problem. And these words gave a deep impression on her. She studied hard and stood first in her class. Many people became her friends. So it was her study for which he could make herself proud, and her family members also make proud by doing such, and she could make friends as well, because study is the only thing, education is the only thing by which we can achieve anything. So this is the story, the childhood story of these two people, Jitkalasa and Bama. And obviously it has a deep pathos in it. We have to understand that the cruelty of society and how to overcome it. Both of them were warrior, both of them were rebeller, both of them were very courageous, and they could make it. But somehow Jitkalasa could not, but she tried her to get rid of such system, but ultimately she was bound to be clutched. But Bama could do something better for her.